Go ahead and get started. And again, I want to welcome you to this conversation about religious and spiritual life at the University of Richmond. My name is Craig Coker. I'm the university chaplain. I'm joined by my colleagues in the chaplaincy, or some of those colleagues, and you'll hear more from them in a minute. We'll tell you a little bit about what religious life, spiritual life, faith life is like at the University of Richmond. We are so grateful that you've joined us tonight, and we know that this is a time of great anticipation and excitement, and maybe a little bit of anxiety for you all as you think about starting your time at Richmond soon. And we commit to you our excitement about having you come, our prayers as you make this important transition to a new time at Richmond. And I hope that you'll find Richmond as wonderful and as enlivening and engaging a place as we all have. So my name's Craig Coker. I'm the chaplain for the university, the chaplaincy, which is a fancy word for religious and spiritual life, is made up of a team. And so you'll hear from other members of the team about what we do. I'm going to first introduce myself a little bit more thoroughly. Then I'm going to share a little bit about what the chaplaincy is in a big picture. And then I'm going to ask my colleagues to share some of their work and what they do. And all along, if you have a question for us, we'd welcome your questions. In fact, that'll help us because we'll be able to speak to what you're interested in rather than what just happens to be on our minds. So if you've got a question, put it into the Q&A and we'll be sure to pick it up when we get to the Q&A time of question and answer in the evening's program. So again, I'm Craig. And I've been at the University of Richmond since 2009 and have loved it. I'm a Protestant by background. My tradition is United Methodist. I'm ordained in that tradition. And one of the roles that I have is I work with many of our Protestant students alongside others in a ministry role. But then my larger role is to help sort of organize the vibrancy of religious and spiritual life on campus. I do a little bit of teaching, primarily in the Jepson School of Leadership Studies. And so perhaps if I don't meet you through the chaplaincy, perhaps I'll have a chance to meet you in that way. So here's just a big picture vision of religious life at UR. The University of Richmond is a secular university. It's a secular university that welcomes religious expression in a lot of different forms. And so wherever you may be on your spiritual path, on your faith journey, in your religious walk, our aspiration is that we will find and create and have a community that you can connect with. Whether you have grown up in a religious family all of your life and you want to continue in that tradition, fabulous. Our hope is that to welcome you into the community that you want to be a part of. Whether you're sort of spiritually seeking and searching and you're not sure exactly what you believe, that's okay too. That's part of what it means to be a young adult and to make your way in the world. And we have programs and ministries that are organized to try to meet you where you are and walk alongside you. So 5 quick goals for the chaplaincy. First, we try to have a variety of religious communities present that you can plug into, regardless of your background or belief, that you can find the one that's right for you. Second, we believe it's important to learn something about what others believe as part of being an informed citizen of the world, part of being a leader in the world, a spiritually mature person in the world, to know something about what others believe, and so to help build people up in a world where too often people are torn down. That's second. Third, we know that spiritual searching is a big part of being a young adult. I mentioned that earlier, and we have organized programming to help students along that path. And you'll hear from Jamie Lynn on that. Fourth, we know that everybody goes through a hard time. And if you're not going through a hard time now, great. But but one day you will be going through a hard time. And so part of our job is to be there offering what's sometimes called pastoral care, spiritual care, compassion for those who are going through a difficult time, and to walk with you on that journey. And then the fifth thing we try to do is we try to think about the role that faith and religious life play in some of the larger ethical questions of the day. And we try to engage those. As the university is a moral community, we think about big issues that are important to our lives and to the world, and we try to do that. So that's a big picture. We're going to drill down now and share a little bit some specific things about religious and spiritual life at the University of Richmond. And remember that as we go along, and if a question comes to you, put it in the chat, and we will be sure to answer it, or at least we'll do our best to answer it. So that's me. Again, I'm Craig. Great to meet you from a distance. Can't wait to meet you in person. And I'm going to pass it along to my colleague, Bryn Bagby-Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. I am excited to be with you all tonight, and as a proud alumna of the University of Richmond, to welcome you to becoming a Spider, and excited to share a little bit about the chaplaincy as well. I serve as the associate chaplain, and one of my responsibilities within that role is to coordinate a regular worship service that meets on campus called Kairos. We meet on Tuesday evenings in the chapel. It's a contemplative service that meets from 8 to 8:30 p.m. And it involves contemporary music, hymns, candle lighting, prayer, a brief homily, and just time for silence and reflection. So that's one of the on-campus services that we have. I also work closely with our Catholic chaplain, Deacon Tom Mullen, who coordinates Catholic Mass, which is held in the chapels at 5 p.m. on Sunday evening. And that's 5 to 6 p.m. on Sunday. And then Deacon Tom and I also work together to help plan all of our holiday services throughout the year, the Christian holiday services. So we have Candlelight Festival of Lessons and Carols that's held in partnership with the Department of Music. And then throughout the spring semester, we also host Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, and Easter services on campus too. Another aspect of my role is helping to coordinate one of our pilgrimages, one of our international pilgrimages that's a part of our larger pilgrimage program. And I know Craig may speak to that a bit more later, but in the past, we've traveled to a number of different destinations. We've been to the Taizé community in France. In most recent years, we've done hiking pilgrimages along the Camino de Santiago in Spain and St. Cuthbert's Way in England and Scotland. I also helped to coordinate one of our forums on campus, the Weinstein-Rosenthal Forum on Faith, Ethics, and Global Society. And this fall, in September, end of September, you can join us for the forum that will host Claudia Rankin. So we hope you'll be able to join us for that event. Beyond those responsibilities, I, as Craig noted, just providing support and care for students. We know that beginning college can be a significant time of transition. So helping folks find their place, explore their identity, develop their faith, nurture their spirituality, and really make plans for the future. So we're excited that we will soon get to see you and welcome any questions you might have. And I'm going to toss it over to Josh.
Thanks, Bryn. Hello, Spiders. I very much look forward to meeting you in person, but for now, we'll settle for welcoming you via this webinar. As you think about coming back to campus, I work with or coming to campus, I should say. I am the Jewish chaplain and director of religious life. And in my role, I do a couple of different things. I work with our Jewish students and students of all backgrounds who are interested in how they can learn more about Judaism through our Jewish Life program, and recognizing that Judaism has never been a monolith and that there are many ways to do Jewish. we take a pluralistic approach to our programming. So that includes rituals and holiday observance, like welcoming Shabbat every Friday at 5:30, which includes songs and prayers and sometimes a meal with community. It includes, as we think about the high holidays in September, creating opportunities to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur, and arranging opportunities in the community for students to celebrate with prayer in a community that might feel more like those communities that they're a part of at home. On campus, we'll also celebrate with holidays like Sukkot and Hanukkah, and in every spring we host a Passover Seder on campus for the University of Richmond community. We also do programs on a weekly basis, and I work alongside the Hillel student leadership team to develop programs in line with what students are looking for. Sometimes it's educational, sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's just social, because while it's good to wrestle with real big important questions through a Jewish lens, sometimes it's also just nice to watch a movie with some food. And then we also offer special talks and trips throughout the year, including things like to our local Virginia Holocaust Museum and occasional trips to the museum in DC as well. In addition to that work, I also support our multi-faith student council and hosting multi-faith dinner and discussions every Tuesday at 6 p.m. in the office of the chaplaincy, the Wilton Center. That's a wonderful space for students of all backgrounds to come and learn about sort of that second goal that Craig was talking about in the very beginning, about other faiths, other traditions, other worldviews, to both learn more for the purpose of being a better leader, but also to develop empathy, compassion, understanding of others, and to be, as he said, a better citizen. And it also helps to learn more about your own traditions sometimes. So we host that space along with a couple of other wonderful opportunities through a multi-faith lens in this Tuesday evenings. The last piece of my, or I should say, there's two more. I also, in the multi-faith world, lead our multi-faith international pilgrimage. In years past, that has taken us to Spain, to Poland, to the Holy Land, and again, bringing diverse groups of students to explore big questions of our time through a specific location. And the last piece of my work now actually is working with our 14 partner campus ministries and to helping to make sure that, as Craig says, that we have a healthy ecology of religious and spiritual expression, and that our campus ministers and campus ministries are supported in that. One of the wonderful people that I get to work with in that part of my role, though I work with him at other times too, is our Muslim chaplain, Waleed Ilyas, who's not with us tonight. Waleed leads our Muslim life group, and he also works with a wonderful group of leaders who help him to develop programs throughout the week, including Jummah prayer every Friday at 1:10 in the office of the chaplaincy. I will put both my contact information and Waleed's contact information in the chat, but for now, I think that'll do. I'll turn things over to Jamie Lynn.
Good evening, friends. It is so good to be with each of you, and I am so excited that you are joining us at the University of Richmond. I am Reverend Jamie Lynn Haskins, and I'm the chaplain for spiritual life at the University of Richmond. And in my role at UR, I specifically serve as chaplain to students who are spiritual but not religious. So if you are holding questions about your religious identity, if you feel a particular tradition some days, but other days you're like, oh, I don't know. If you're exploring religion for the first time, or if you know you're not religious, but you have a deeply spiritual side, then I am your chaplain. And we are really excited in the Office of the Chaplaincy to journey with you. So we really firmly believe at UR that all are welcome in the Office of the Chaplaincy. And we have a place for everyone. And so, and it's really lovely to serve in that role. In addition to supporting our spiritual but not religious student group, I also plan our domestic pilgrimage every year. This year, if all goes as planned, we'll be traveling to Arizona to to a beautiful, beautiful retreat center that's in a mountain range, and it's lovely, and we'll be exploring meditation, yoga, and silence as spiritual disciplines, and that will be over fall break. So if you're interested, make sure to stay tuned for additional information about that will come out in to emails as the year begins. I also have the honor of coordinating our Sylvester Lecture Series. So the Sylvester Lecture Series brings in incredible folks who are doing meaningful work in spirituality and leadership. And this year we are lucky in February to be bringing in Kate Bowler, who's written a few incredible books and asked questions about what grief and moving through trauma means in this day and in this age with all that we've been through together. I have the privilege of coordinating our Chaplaincy Summer Internship program. So part of the amazingness that is UR is that we work really hard to provide you with funded internship experiences over the summer. And the Chaplaincy Summer Internship is one of those opportunities. And so I'll look forward to coordinating that for some of you. And finally, I get to facilitate an experience called Sacred Pause every Friday. And Sacred Pause is a really important time when the entire UR community is invited to come together and to take a minute and to be still and to reflect on their week and share about their lives together. And it's usually from about 4 to 4:20 or 4:25 on Fridays. And it's just a brief moment. It's a great space to meet people if you're new on campus and to simply pause and be together as spiders. So I can't wait to meet some of you. Please come in and see us in the Wilton Center.
Bryn, Josh, Jamie Lynn, thanks so much for sharing a little glimpse into your work. I'm going to offer a couple of more reflections, and then we can move into some Q&A. And so maybe as I'm talking, you who are listening and watching might think of some questions. And everything's on the table. Like the people on this screen are impossible to offend. We want to answer the questions that you have. Maybe not impossible, but you're not going to offend us. We want to answer the questions that something brought you to this webinar. You were interested in something for some reason, maybe just to learn, or but feel free to pop a question or two in there and into that Q&A, and we will and we want to be sure to answer it. So I want to highlight a couple of things that my colleagues have shared that I think illustrate what the chaplaincy at the University of Richmond is trying to accomplish. And the first is this pilgrimage program that we mentioned. We, every year, as long as COVID allows, we take students on religious journeys all over the world. And it comes with a class. Most of these pilgrimages have a class that are attached to it, a pastoral class where students can come together with others. Maybe they already know there's other students on the team. Maybe they're meeting each other for the first time. And it's a commitment to a spiritual journey. Some of those are rooted in a particular tradition, Christianity perhaps, or have an overlay of Judaism or another tradition. Some of those are more explicitly interfaith, where students from different religious backgrounds are coming together to travel together to another part of the world. I think this program is an example of why Richmond is such a special place. It's high touch. It's a travel experience, often an international travel experience. You get to know faculty and staff really well, very, very closely. You get to know other peers and friends at UR very closely around things that really matter. There's nothing wrong with going to Daytona for spring break. That's fine, but that isn't this. This is going to the Camino de Santiago, one of the most ancient pilgrimages in the world. It's going to Auschwitz to try to process extraordinary evil in the world and heartache. It's going to the Holy Land to think about how that place that means so much to so many can also be the source of pain for so many. How do we do that? And this program is funded. And so if you're accepted into it, regardless of your ability to pay, you're able to go because it's a commitment that we make. So that's an example of the kind of thing that we're trying we're trying to do in the chaplaincy. And another example is there every day of the week, there is something going on in a religious community at the University of Richmond. Maybe it's FCA that's gathering over at the Robbins Center, that's Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or it's our Muslim students getting together for a prayer on Friday afternoon, or it's InterVarsity that is getting together for a small group, a Christian small group on Tuesday night, or it's Sunday evening, our Buddhist community getting together to meditate and sit together in silence. There are, every day of the week, there are opportunities for you to be involved, depending on who you are, depending how you want to get involved, depending on what nourishes your soul. And so we're excited that you've joined us tonight, and we're excited that you'll join us here in a few weeks. So I see there's a question in the Q&A. Fabulous. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I'm going to open it up now. And the question is about pilgrimages. Like, do they occur during spring break? That's a great question. We could expand that question. When do the pilgrimages occur? And so with that, I'll ask Bryn to talk a little bit about kind of the timeline of how these pilgrimages happen.
Absolutely. So we typically have 3 pilgrimages each year. One is the one that Jamie Lynn mentioned. We have a fall pilgrimage where students travel with our co-leaders over fall break, often leaving on the Friday and returning on Tuesday of fall break. And then another time when we do travel is spring break. So our multi-faith pilgrimages sometimes occur during spring break, and our hiking pilgrimages that Craig and I have led in the past sometimes occur during spring break too. So as an example, Craig mentioned visiting Auschwitz. So Poland is one of the locations where we have traveled in the past over spring break. The Camino de Santiago is one that we have traveled over spring break, because those are both destinations that we can go to during March and have a very meaningful experience during that time frame. Beyond that, though, we also sometimes travel in May, and that is after commencement. So it's usually the week following commencement. And in the past, we've traveled to the United Kingdom, to South Korea, Indonesia, other places in May. So those are the 3 times that pilgrimages typically occur. And I'll add to that for those spring pilgrimages, March and May, there is a course that is associated with the pilgrimage. So the course lasts the duration of the spring semester, and that March or May travel intensive and pilgrimage experience is a part of the entirety of the course experience that you have together as a team.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Bryn, and a great question. Other questions that y'all might have, put them into that Q&A. Again, something brought you tonight, and I wonder if you might be willing to sort of drill down on that inkling that brought you here tonight, to see if there might be a question around that we could answer, so as to better help you be prepared for when you come to campus. And we're just gonna sit quietly together for a minute or two to see if any other questions arise before we share a little bit more. All right, so here's a key question. Jamie Lynn, if I'm new to the University of Richmond and I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I find what's going on in religious and spiritual life at the University of Richmond? Like they're talking and there's so much going on. I mean, it's clearly like that Coker guy said, like every day of the week, there's something going on. How would I drill down to figure out where I could go to find the specific needs that I have? How would I do that?
That is a great question, and funny you might ask, Craig. We have just the answer. The Office of the Chaplaincy has a newsletter every week. It'll hit your inbox if you subscribe on Mondays at 8:30 a.m. And it will include a schedule for the entire week. So we often have 2 to 3 programs a night throughout the course of the week. It will also have 1 to 2 short articles about what's going on in the Office of the Chaplaincy and link you to all of our contact information. So I will drop the link to subscribe to the Chaplaincy newsletter in the chat, but it is a great place to start in terms of how to get connected and plugged in.
Thanks, Jamie Lynn. And we've got alongside that, a good question that's come in about how does the chaplaincy interact with churches in the greater Richmond area? Or we could expand that and say other religious organizations in the greater Richmond area. And that's a fabulous question. So we have, Josh mentioned partner campus ministries. So as part of the ecology of religious life, there are those of us who work for the university, like those of us on this screen. And there are those, then we have colleagues that we partner with who represent communities not located on campus, but located off campus. Many of those, not all of them, but many of those have a connection to a local congregation. And so that's the way we partner primarily with local congregations, is through those established campus ministries. Those can be found on our website under campus ministries. Those can be found there. But we also have, students who, one of the gifts of being a part of the University of Richmond is they love being a part of the University of Richmond, but on Sunday mornings or at another time of the week, they like to get involved in a community off campus. And we support that. And there are lots of great churches and other religious communities in the Richmond area that students get involved in, and that can be a really wonderful thing to do during your 4 years at UR. You connect with another peer group. You connect with adults that you don't see on campus. You can, worship in some other way. And so we certainly encourage students to follow their own kind of heart and soul in that if they want to get involved in a church off campus. But our primary partnerships with congregations off campus are through those campus ministries. Josh helps to organize that. Josh, is there anything else you might want to say about that? And then there's another question in there that kind of ties into that in terms of, is there transportation to off-campus services? Josh, will you take those?
Absolutely. So as Craig mentioned, we have, as part of our campus ministries, several groups that are affiliated with local churches, and others who are affiliated with sort of groups of local synagogues, like Jewish Life, for example, or Muslim Life, who has a relationship to several local mosques, right? And in that case, it's done sort of through the campus minister in terms of how you're, like, where those relationships are, and also to the second question, how rides are formed to go there, or how they're organized, I should say. And so for some of those ministries, I'm thinking, for example, of our Lutheran campus ministry. The church that we're affiliated with is just around the corner, and it's I'd say fairly frequent that students carpool over when they're able to the church for Sunday worship. In the case of, as Craig was saying, for Jewish Life, right, like we'll organize rides when we go as a community, though there are other congregations who are always happy to provide rides to students, especially if there's a faculty or staff member who might be able to do so. I'm going to put in, as I said, the link to our chaplaincy groups, our campus ministries, and that also includes some worship opportunities both on and off campus.
Thanks so much. Great questions. I really appreciate you all asking those good questions. And I'll just pause again to see if there are any other questions that you all have that might pop up. And specifically to the question about sort of transportation to church services off campus. There's a lot of times kind of students will, kind of Josh was suggesting this, will connect and share rides and so forth. And then also we have as Bryn suggested, we do a chapel service, a church service on Tuesday nights in the chapel at 8 o'clock. That's that service that's called Kairos, and it's in the chapel. And of course, you'd be very welcome to attend that if you wanted to attend a service, a worship service on campus. All right, what are as we begin to kind of pull this, bring this in for a landing here, are looking at my colleagues now, are there things that we have missed that you think are really important for, maybe it's a question that one of our new spotters is listening to but hadn't thought about asking, but might be helpful? Are the things that we have missed along those lines?
One thing I would want to share is about our interfaith prayer space that we have in the Wilton Center. So whether it can be hard when you're new on campus to find a quiet place that is just yours for a minute. And so if you find the Wilton Center, we are next to THC on, I'm really bad with directions. Anyway, I'll let someone else tell you where we are. But if you find the Wilton Center, we have an interfaith prayer space just inside the building. You can slide it over to show that it's occupied, and it can be your space. And that space can be for meditation, to engage in prayer, simply to be still, for 10-minute yoga practice. But it is room that is just for you, and that space is open whenever the building is open. So I just want to make sure you know that there is space if you need some time away from your roommate, who I'm sure will be great, or anyone else on campus. That interfaith prayer space is there for you.
Thanks, Jamie Lynn. And the prayer space is located in the Wilton Center, and the Wilton Center is located between the Commons and the chapel. So if you can locate the chapel, and the Commons is that kind of building that also serves as a bridge that goes across the lake, that you kind of walk through to get from one side of the building to the other. Between the Commons and the chapel, kind of tucked back, is the Wilton Center. We got a question about the chapel and stained glass in the chapel. Great question. It seems to suggest that maybe you had a chance to go inside the chapel, which is wonderful. Yeah, those stained glass windows, they were put in the 1980s. The chapel itself dates from 1927. So Cannon Memorial Chapel was built in 1927. So it'll be 100 years old, not too long. As you can imagine, being 100 years old, it's had several facelifts across the way, as we all need some help as we get older. And in the 1980s, those windows were put in, and each window connects to the University of Richmond or some important moment in the Christian story. So there's a resurrection window, there's a Genesis window, there's a Lord's Prayer window, but there's also, if you look, there's an arts and sciences window, and there is a law school window. There is a arts and sciences and a science window. So it's a wonderful thing to go in and kind of, as you walk around that very special space, to look at those windows and think about the connections to UR. And I think Bryn just put something in the chat to give some more details on that. Thank you. All right, so we're getting close to the end, and I want to give my colleagues a chance, again, if there's anything else they want to share, or if there are any last questions from our attendees. Welcome, yeah, Bryn, Josh. Thank you, Josh. Just put that in. Yep, Bryn.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I know that there are a lot of opportunities to navigate when new students arrive on campus. And we have a wealth of them, and I know a lot of other offices do. So one thing I would just say is, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed about where to start, particularly with religious and spiritual life, just find one of us and we'll be happy to help. And you can kind of share what you're interested in, and we can help point you in the direction of what might be a good first try, first fit, and you can always continue to explore if that didn't work. So just wanted to mention that because I know it can be a lot to kind of sort through when you first get started.
Thanks, Bren. And you'll see us around during orientation. There will be we're doing an open house during orientation that's just for the chaplaincy that you can come talk to us at greater length, and you'll see us around at some of the other orientation events. We got another question that came in, so I want to make sure we get to that. And the question's about that fall break retreat. Is the yoga fall break retreat, the yoga retreat associated with a particular class for the fall semester that you must take? As it sounded as though the other pilgrimages is part of it. Wow, I'm not gonna say the name I can see the name of the student. I'm not gonna embarrass you by saying the name of the student, maybe everybody else can, but that's a very insightful question. It shows that you are really listening because that's an important detail, and I'll let Jamie Lynn speak to it since she's leading that retreat.
Yes, great question. So because the turnaround time for the fall break pilgrimage is so quick, we don't ask you to enroll in any type of class for credit. However, we will meet about 4 times for hour-long or so meetings, usually in the evening after your classes and obligations are complete, to prepare as a team for that pilgrimage. So this year in those 4 meetings, we'll study a little bit of yoga and its origins, meditation and its origins and religious tradition, religious background. We'll also learn some about the indigenous peoples who occupied the area where we will be traveling, and we'll learn a little bit about how to practice silence. So we'll meet 4 times, but those meetings are short and they're not a part of a class. They're not for credit or a part of a larger curriculum. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, we are so appreciative of those of you who have joined us tonight. In the chat, you can see our contact information. If you'd like to reach out to any one of us before you get on campus, you'd be welcome to do so. We want to be as helpful as we can. If you'd rather wait until you get on campus to come to our open house or drop by the Wilton Center at some point or see us at some other orientation event, you're welcome to do that too. Know that our thoughts and our hearts and our prayers are with you as you make this really important transition. And there no doubt will be some stumbles along the way, but we can also assure you that the road is going to be beautiful too. And we hope that the spiritual life that is important to you, that you're able to make that an important part of your time at the University of Richmond, and we're eager to help you do that. So thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the summer, and bless you, and we will see you in a few weeks. Have a good night.